රිවයින්ඩ් කරන්න පුළුවන් නිසා මුකුත් මගේ වෙන්නේ.
BOTV TV බලන හොඳම විදිහ.
Good evening tonight. Temple shooting. The chief incumbent of the Kirivehera Viharaya shot at the temple. Police say the main suspect is identified. Safeguarding local produce. President Maithripala Sirisena says will make a decision to increase the tax on imported fruits. High-speed justice. Cabinet co-spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne says country's first special high court will be open on the 4th of July in Colombo to speed up judicial process.
First week, in July 4th, we are setting up the first courts. By September, we will be completing all the three.
Why not you? Deputy Minister Karunaratne Paranavitarana says journalists should ask for the list of parliamentarians who had taken money from perpetual treasuries.
Investigative journalists in this country can very confidently go to the court and ask for list of MPs.
And in sports, FIFA 2026, the joint North American bid wins the right to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup, comfortably beating rivals Morocco in the vote. It's 9 o'clock on the dot. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7, Sri Lanka's news channel. Hello everyone, I'm Mahesh Johnny. Despite the US having arguments with Canada and Mexico, well, they will have to drop all that by 2026 as they want the bid to host the FIFA World Cup by then. Now that's coming up later on in the show, but we begin in Katharagama tonight with the latest on a shooting. The main suspect in the shooting incident last night, targeting the chief incumbent of the Katharagama Kirivehera Rajamahaviharaya, Venerable Kobavaka Daminda Thera, has been identified by the police as Asela Bandara, who was attached to the temple Devala. The Kirivehera chief incumbent, who was shot at late last night, was airlifted to Colombo from the Hambantota Base Hospital this morning for further treatment under the directive of President Maithripala Sirisena.
At around 11 last night, gunshots were fired at the chief incumbent of the Katharagama Kirivehera Rajamahavihara, Venerable Kobavaka Daminda Thera and another Thera, when they were entering the temple premises. According to initial investigations, police suggest that 3 individuals had arrived in a jeep and opened fire at the 2 monks. The vehicle used by the suspects in the shooting was later found and detained by police. Both monks who were left with gunshot injuries were initially admitted to the Debaravava Base Hospital and later transferred to the Hambantota Base Hospital. Hambantota Hospital sources told us that the lives of both monks were out of danger. However, as per directive of President Maithripala Sirisena, the chief incumbent was airlifted to Colombo and admitted to a private hospital this morning. Meanwhile, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa visited the chief incumbent, who was receiving treatment. Meanwhile, police said that 4 special teams, including special task force officials, have been deployed to arrest the suspects. Sources close to the Kirivehera temple say they suspect an individual attached to a Devala to be connected to the shooting. The Kirivehera chief incumbent had decided to relieve the said individual from duties at the Devala after receiving several complaints against him. The same individual had also filed a court case seeking ownership of the Devala. The court ruling in May was in favour of the Kirivehera temple. Resident monks of the temple further say that the individual had fled the area following the incident. Meanwhile, police spokesperson SP Ruan Gunasekara said they had identified the main suspect who was attached to the Devala of the temple as Asela Lakshman Bandara. Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara, meanwhile addressing an event in Colombo, said that prompt action was being initiated.
Uncertainty surrounding provincial council polls were laid to rest when Cabinet co-spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne said today that the elections will be called by December this year. Addressing the weekly Cabinet media briefing in Colombo today, Dr. Rajitha Senaratne also said that the country's first special High Court will be set up this July. The Cabinet of Ministers yesterday approved a proposal by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to gazette and present to Parliament a bill to establish an office for reparations for formal and transparent distribution of reparations to individuals affected by the North-East conflict, political disturbances or due to enforced disappearances. Meanwhile, President Maithripala Sirisena informed the Cabinet that steps have been taken to appoint a task force under his chairmanship, also comprising the Prime Minister, provincial governors and armed forces and police, in order to review, coordinate, conduct and monitor the development programs executed by the government in the northern and eastern provinces. Meanwhile, during the Cabinet media briefing today, Cabinet co-spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne took questions from journalists and revealed that the country's first special High Court will be open on the 4th of July.
Special High Courts, Parliament approved it earlier. How long will it take for you to establish?
First week, I think July 4th, we are setting up the first courts. By September, we will be completing all the three.
So first 4th July in Colombo or?
Colombo.
US Ambassador Dr. Pratap කියලා තියෙනවා ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයාට 2020 දී මොනම හේතුවක් නිසාවත් ජනපති පදවිය ලැබෙන්න ඉඩ සලස්සන්නේ නැහැ කියලා ඒක වළක්වනවා කියලා.
එතකොට මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාලා ඒක එහෙම දෙයක් කතා බහක් උනේ නැහැ කියලා ඩිනයි කළා තියෙනවා.
එහෙම එකක් සිද්ධ වුණොත් රජයේ රියැක්ෂන් එක මොකක්ද?
එයා ඇමරිකානු පුරවැසියෙක්. එයා ඇමරිකානු නීතියට තමයි යටත් වෙන්නේ.
සුජීව සේනසිංහ ඇමතිවරයා සහ ඇතැම් අය කියනවා අපි ඇලොසිස්ගෙන් මෙහෙම සල්ලි ගත්තා ඒක කියලා උන් ප්‍රසිද්ධිය කියනවා. ඒක ඔබතුමා දකින්නේ වැරද්දක්ද?
මැතිවරණයකදී නොයෙකුත් අය ඇවිල්ලා අපිට මුදල් දෙනවනේ. නමුත් ඔවුන්ගේ වැරදි ක්‍රියාකලාපයන් ආරක්ෂා කිරීමට ඉදිරිපත් වෙනවා නම් අන්න ඒක වැරදි.
ඊයේ පත් කළ නියෝජ්‍ය ඇමතිවරු විද්‍යාත්මක පදනම මතද පත් කරේ
හැකිතරම් විද්‍යාත්මක පදනමක්.
ඊයේ ඩීඑම් ස්වාමිනාද නැමතිවරයාගේ යෝජනාවක් ජනාධිපතිතුමා ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරයි කියන ඒ මොකක්ද මෙතුමා?
ඒකෙදි තියුනේ
That was a program to hand over compensation to people of different ethnicities in the north. There was a mention of those connected to terrorism too. The previous government rehabilitated 12,000 terrorists and they were even provided with jobs. However, the president said yesterday that it would send a message of acceptance if we grant compensation to terrorists.
මේක අපි පිළිගැනීමක් වෙනවා කියලා.
දුරු පළාත් සභා මන්ත්‍රී සිවාජිලිංගම් ජාතිවාදී ප්‍රකාශ මේ වෛරී සහගත සිතුවිලි ඇති කරන ප්‍රකාශ එතුමාත් කියලා තියෙනවා මේ තුන් ඇයි මෙතුමා සම්බන්ධයෙන් පියවරක් ගන්නේ නැති ආණ්ඩුවේ හැටියට.
ඔය අන්තවාදයේ හැමතැනම තියෙනවනේ.
Extremism is everywhere. I was happy when Vigneshwaran was appointed because the Tamil party could do what we couldn't do, which is appointing a Supreme Court judge to this profession. Today, even the party is disappointed. It's the same with Sivajalingam.
සිවාජිලිංගමුත් එහෙමනේ.
මේ අවුරුද්ද අන්තිම පළාත් සභා මැතිවරණය ගැන පොඩි ඉංගියක් දෙන්න දෙන්නේ තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියන එක පිළිබඳව.
දෙසැම්බර් මාසෙ වෙනකොට පළාත් සභා තියෙයි.
President Maithripala Sirisena says the tax on imported fruits will need to be increased in the near future in order to safeguard the local farmer community. President Sirisena made this remark participating in an observation tour at Thalavila Grama Shakti Productions village in Puthalam today. The Northwestern Province Action Committee of the Grama Shakti People's Movement met today at the Madurankulle Mercy Education Complex in Puthalam under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena. The President also launched a water purification plant at Pulichikulama, which has been set up under the national program to combat kidney diseases. Land should be provided to build houses, but it should be done with a proper plan by the relevant ministry. It is too late to stop the lands dividing into small plots of land by the private companies. This should have been done at least 10 years before. The consequences of this will be experienced initially by the people in Kurunegala and Puttalam districts before the other parts of the country. Later, President Sirisena arrived at the Thalavila Grama Shakti production village. The president also supervised the solar power project at Thalavila by the Department of Agriculture under the National Food Production Program. President Sirisena also engaged in a discussion with the villagers over their livelihood issues. This is the first time a president came to Kalpitiya to see our plight. At least not a cabinet minister has visited this area. We're very much happy over your humble arrival here. Agriculture Department has announced this area as a village for fruits, but we are facing a lot of issues on how to sell our products. I expect to impose a high tax on fruits from abroad to reduce the import of fruits. I will be sending a team here within a week, then I will solve all your issues. Leader of the Pivithuru Urume, parliamentarian Uday Gammanpilla revealed that the joint opposition has proposed 4 names for the 2020 presidential candidacy. He made the remark following a meeting held at the residence of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. A special discussion was held between members of the joint opposition and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa at his residence in Colombo yesterday. Last week, the Prime Minister made an interesting statement in Parliament. He told parliamentarian Bandulu Gunawardena that he won't get a ministerial position once Gotabaya Rajapaksa becomes the president. Although we hadn't decided on our presidential candidate, the leader of our enemy team guarantees that Gotabaya Rajapaksa will be the president. This is sufficient confirmation for us to realize that our proposed candidate will secure victory. We propose former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, former Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa, former Minister Basil Rajapaksa and parliamentarian Dinesh Gunawardena. Meanwhile, another special discussion took place among the group of 16 SLFP members who vacated their position in the unity government. The meeting was held at the residence of parliamentarian Tilanga Sumathipala. Meanwhile, parliamentarian Susil Premajanta also expressed views regarding plans of the group of 16 SLFPers. If we consider the outcome of the local authorities election, it is evident that the public wants former President Mahinda Rajapaksa back in power. It wouldn't matter to them if he comes in the form of Prime Minister or not. Deputy Minister of Science, Technology and Research Karunaratne Paranavitarana insists that journalists have the right to obtain the list of parliamentarians who have allegedly obtained funds from Perpetual Treasuries Limited and its subsidiary companies. He claims that the right is vested by the Right to Information Act. The Deputy Minister also talked about the request by Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, Partly Champika Ranamaka, to appoint a presidential commission for the incident of misappropriation of public funds through coal procurement.
Nowadays, many people are talking about a group of 118 people who has taken money from Perpetual Treasuries and its head Arjun Aloysius. It is very easier to sort out this matter using the RTI law in this country. RTI law clearly says that there are certain restrictions not to disclose any matter related to the criminal investigation. According to the Bond Commission report, there is a section which should not be disclosed because it is subject to criminal investigation. However, there is another provision that if there is a national importance, you can disregard that clause and obtain those kind of details also from the court. So rather than chasing behind people, whether asking whether you took money or some other took money, investigative journalists in this country can very confidently go to the court and ask for this kind of list of MPs. Similar to the bond scam, there is a call tender scam also. Minister asked to appoint another presidential commission to inquire that call deal also.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back, everyone. An extreme sport participant died today after falling into the Mahaveli River in Mahiyangane while taking part in an adventure-themed off-road bicycle race. The event, titled Rumble in the Jungle, which was organised by Lankan Airlines, was later suspended after this incident. Soon after the incident, the police, aided by several search and rescue teams, searched the area and later managed to discover the body of the participant. Rumble in the Jungle 2018 is a challenging mountain bike race across 4 districts of the Central Highlands, organised with the aim of showcasing Sri Lanka's astonishing landscapes. Chairman of the Office of Missing Persons, President's Council, Salia Piri, says that the issue of disappearances in Sri Lanka affects all communities across the country. He said this addressing media following the 4th public consultation session of the Office of Missing Persons in Trincomalee today, with the participation of families and relatives of persons who disappeared during the period of the conflict.
The 4th public consultation session of the Office of Missing Persons was held with the participation of around 600 families and relatives of persons who went missing during the conflict in Trincomalee today. While the meeting was ongoing at the Hindu Cultural Hall in Trincomalee, a separate group engaged in a protest outside the premises. Chairman of the Office of Missing Persons, President's Council Salia Piri, spoke to media following the public consultation session.
Outside, there was a protest by about 150 people from other families of the disappeared who have certain misgivings or doubts in relation to the OMP. We are speaking to them, we are inviting them to cooperate with the OMP, and despite their whatever reservations they have, we are asking them to engage with the OMP as a means of helping to find their loved ones. What is significant is that today's meeting was attended to by families of all 3 communities, Sinhalese, Tamils and Muslim communities, which goes to show that the issue of disappearances and the missing is something which cuts across different communities and affects different sections of people. The purpose of the OMP is to help people find a solution to the issue of the disappeared and to help the families to trace the missing, but also to provide support to those families.
A special conference was held today on the latest findings of influenza virus and epidemics spreading across Sri Lanka. Director of Health Education Bureau, Dr. Pabba Palihawadna, talked about some of the findings of research conducted following the recent epidemic in the southern province.
There are many types. Of course, the A and B are the worst types which can cause the pandemics. Jude very clearly said that there is a new one also has been emerged. The important things for us, what we need to keep in our minds, very infectious, highly communicable. It can spread from person to person very fast. So those are the things that we need to keep in our mind when it comes to prevention. Some strains can cause more severe illness than others. The past we experienced that the virus is causing more severe illness among pregnant women, as Priyanka said in 2015. We don't know whether we are experiencing even this time, which is causing more severe illness in children. And also the communicability of the influenza, which we have to keep in our mind. And the patients will become infectious 1 day before and 5 to 7 days after. The communicability is influenced by age, level of immunocompetency, and the treatment received. It is essential to have the full day course of 5-day treatment with the antiviral, which is, of course, if we don't treat the patient properly, may communicate the illness.
The Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to probe the management of Lankan Airlines, Lankan Catering and Mihin Lanka today asked the Attorney General's Department to probe if the Board of Investment was influenced by anyone to provide tax concessions to Mihin Lanka. This is to ascertain whether the entities had breached the conditions of the Board of Investment. Accordingly, Director of Investment Appraisals of Sri Lanka Board of Investment, Gamini Jayathilaka, testified before the Commission today. Director of Investment Appraisal of Sri Lanka Board of Investments, Gamini Jayathilaka, was extensively questioned on tariffs and other tax concessions given to Mihin Lanka Private Limited through the Sri Lanka Board of Investments. When he was questioned on the total value of tax concessions given to Mihin Lanka Private Limited from 2012 to 2018, he said it amounts to 385 million rupees. However, it was revealed last Monday that although there have been breach of promises in the agreement with the Board of Investments, no investigation was conducted on the issue so far. He further said that on other occasions where conditions were breached, the agreement were cancelled with the approval of the Board of Directors of the Board of Investment. The chairman of the Commission, former Supreme Court Justice Anil Gunaratne, then ordered the Attorney General's Department to probe if the Board of Investment was influenced by some party to prevent taking action against Mihin Lanka Private Limited when it breached conditions of the agreement. Let's take you to the stock market now. Colombo shares ended lower for a sixth straight session today, hitting their lowest close in nearly 6 months as foreign investors sold banking shares such as Commercial Bank of Ceylon. The all-share price index rose 0.17% weaker at 6,303.788, while the S&P SL 20 also lost 0.17%. Foreign investors sold $1.34 million worth of equities today, extending to year-to-date net foreign outflow of 741.1 million rupees. Now, also the Sri Lankan rupee closed slightly lower in thin trade today, hovering near an all-time low hit earlier this week as imported dollar demand surpassed mass selling of the green backed by banks. Now, here's a look at the currency rates for today.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
On to international news now. Yesterday marked a historic milestone in world politics as the sitting US president and North Korean leader shook their hands in unison as friends for the first time. Although their closed-door discussions weren't as lengthy as how it happens among other world leaders, this meeting between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un made a lasting impact. Following the summit yesterday, the US president, however, said that it will take some time before his administration decides to lift sanctions on North Korea. It is in this backdrop that North Korean media today reported something rather contradictory. They say that during discussions with their leader yesterday, Donald Trump had agreed to lift sanctions against their nation. This development has now left a confusing note to the otherwise happy world event. Following the historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore yesterday, US President Donald Trump said that their discussions were very successful. However, when journalists inquired about the currently imposed sanctions against North Korea, Trump had this to say.
Sanctions played a big role. As you know, and as I've said, the sanctions right now remain. But at a certain point, I actually look forward to taking them off.
However, North Korean state media today reported that in addition to providing security guarantees for their isolated nation, the US president has also agreed to lift sanctions on the country. Trump was cited by North Korea's official KCNA news agency as saying that he made the promise after pledging to end joint military exercises with South Korea. There was no US response to the report, but sanctions had not been mentioned in the statement signed by two leaders at the conclusion of the summit. Meanwhile, North Korea's neighbors South Korea and Japan have expressed concerns over Trump's promise to stop joint military exercises with South Korea, drills which have long angered Pyongyang. South Korea and Japan both depend heavily on the US presence in their countries as a deterrent against North Korea. Following the meeting of the century, many critics say that the summit was a missed opportunity for the US leader, which failed to establish concrete commitments for denuclearization by North Korea. The migrant policy adopted by Italy's new government has sparked a war of words with France that exposed tensions over immigration within the European Union. Early in the morning, the Italian Foreign Ministry summoned the French ambassador after President Emmanuel Macron denounced the decision to block the Aquarius, saying that under international law, Italy should have taken the migrants in. Matteo Salvini, Italy's new interior minister, said that the head of the far-right league has also said that his discussions not to accept the migrant board is aimed at forcing other European states to help bear the strain. Meanwhile, an Italian Coast Guard vessel arrived in Sicily today carrying some 937 migrants. A three-vessel convoy, including the charity ship Aquarius, was also en route to Spain, carrying some 600 migrants after being refused entry into Italian ports. Well, it has been a year of increased political tension between the United States, Mexico and Canada, but in 8 years' time, the three countries will unite to host one of the world's biggest sporting spectacles. At a FIFA Association member vote in Moscow today, the joint North American bid won the right to host the 2026 World Cup, comfortably beating rivals Morocco in the vote. The Moroccan bid used its final address to FIFA Congress to point out that the country has a ban on weapons and would not hike up ticket prices to increase profit, a thinly veiled swipe at its rivals. But it was not enough to sway the room as it lost the vote, with the United 2026 bid receiving 134 votes to its 65. The United States-led bid was judged by a FIFA task force to be vastly superior to its Northern African rivals on technical grounds, with a total of 23 stadiums already built or under construction at its disposal. Morocco, while enticing some federations with its commitment to fan engagement in a footballing nation, would have had to build or renovate all of its 14 stadiums in its bid book. That difference, alongside the promise of $4 billion in extra profits for the federations, was enough to convince some undecided voters to side with the United 2026 campaign, which opened its final 15-minute pitch by handing the stage to Alphonso Davies, a 17-year-old Canadian born in a Liberian refugee camp in Ghana. The way the federations voted was made public for the first time, perhaps the most surprising revelation being Russia voting for the United 2026 bid despite political tensions between the nations.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures are to vary between 21 to 33 degrees Celsius, with the highest temperature expected in the Batticaloa district. The lowest temperature will of course be in the Nuwara district. Moving on to your rain forecast now, there will be light showers in certain areas of Colombo, Galle, Matara, Hambantota and Kandy districts. But overall, most of us can expect sunny weather conditions in the island tomorrow.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. First at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time. Be sure to join us then. Before we wrap things up, we would like to show you some wildlife footage in Sri Lanka. The island boasts of a variety of species of birds, reptiles, insects and mammals in our wildlife. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.